I'm going to explain why it's a big deal that the airport ICE agents are not wearing masks. So last year, there were multiple lawsuits in multiple states that dealt with no masking of ICE agents. The most famous one and the largest one was the No Secret Police Act that was passed by California that outlawed ICE from wearing masks during their enforcement efforts. That law was challenged in court by DHS, and DHS won. In that case, they made two arguments. They made a supremacy clause argument, and they also made a officer safety argument. The argument that won was a supremacy clause argument because what they were saying was the way the law was written, it treated federal agents worse than the state local police. So actually not the local police, but the highway patrolmen, specifically the state highway patrol. Basically, ICE officers were being required to remove their masks, and state highway patrolmen were allowed to keep them on. Now, that was corrected. There was actually passed a revised version of that law, and whether or not that will be litigated or not is ongoing. But that basically eliminates a supremacy clause issue. That new law now treats state police officers the same as federal. They all have to take off their masks unless they have a good reason not to. And what that did was that gave a green light for other states to pass similar laws that will also survive the supremacy clause arguments. So if the supremacy clause is off the table, then the only argument that DHS now has is the doxing argument, that if they are unmasked, that those ICE agents will be vulnerable to harassment and that their families will be vulnerable to harassment. Now, the airport ICE agents right now are unmasked because, according to President Trump, it is inappropriate for them to wear masks at the airport when they're not going after the worst of the worst criminals. That doesn't deal with the doxing argument. Again, in these court cases, specifically the California one, there were two arguments: supremacy clause and doxing. Supremacy clause off the table. They fixed the law. All that's left is doxing. Now, yes, in under certain circumstances, they are going after the worst of the worst. When you're dealing with ICE HSI, their crime unit that goes after the actual worst of the worst, that makes up maybe like 5% of all operations, then yes, for them, maybe it makes sense for them to mask. But for 95% of their operations, when they're going after just, civilians or going after people that are just here undocumented, they shouldn't need to wear their masks. Now, I call the ICE officers at the airports the guinea pigs because if they are doxxed, that doxing will be used as evidence in these ongoing court cases. It will create evidence to show that they have to wear their masks. It will strengthen the doxing argument. And likewise, if they are not doxxed, then the other side could use that evidence to show that they can freely take off their masks and they'll be safe. So what I'm going to end this video with is a plea. Please do not dox the ICE agents, because if you do, it'll strengthen their argument as to why they need to wear masks.